Howdy, this is Mackenzie Franklin from SideGame LLC here in Colorado Springs, Colorado. I'm joined by my co-host Dan for Corporate Cardboard. This is episode 29. Dan, how are you doing today?
Yeah, I'm doing very well, Mackenzie. Yeah, been a while since the last episode. My internet isn't the best today, so apologies if this affects the stream going forward, but hopefully we'll get by.
Longtime viewers of the show know that's something that we can definitely work around, but getting Dan's opinions on these games is something we're excited for. So with that being said, we're going to jump right into Corporate Cardboard with our first portion, just some of the games that we've been playing. We're going to talk about 3 games each, some of the things that we like about these games, and then open up the discussion to those watching live or watching later. So Dan, what's the first game that you've been playing recently?
Yeah, so I've got 3 light ones this episode. The first one is from Emperor S.T.A.L.K.E.R. It's a game called World Exchangers, which looks like a roll and write style game, but it's actually a pretty economic game with some pretty novel concepts. The first of which being that you're playing out over 12 rounds, and in each of the rounds you are drawing basically this cash flow line from month to month, and all these different kind of checkpoints you're hitting along the way are going to affect the value of these kind of locations that you're collecting throughout the game. But managing these things is quite difficult because on your turn you have to do one of 2 things, which or sell a location. But the kind of twist in this is that months or rounds in the game, certain locations are worth more money, or they can even give you a little kind of bonus where you can hit off several of these checkpoints surrounding where your little cash flow line is. I was really impressed by this one. I'm surprised it's not rated the highest on Board Game Geek at the moment. Maybe not widely known about yet. Not available in the UK either. I managed to pick this one up at the UK Games Expo. But at the moment, I am loving this one. It's got some good decisions here. Take around 15 to 20 minutes. Feels very distinct to anything else out there. And I just find it really engaging. So yeah, this is a really nice one that is a candidate for one of my fillers of the year for sure.
Wow. Okay. So I see that it's got this roll and write style. Is this a communal thing, or is this something that everybody has their own personal sort of stock management? That's what it looks like, right? One of those, oh, our profits are going great, and then they're decreasing.
Yes. So everybody has their own personal board, but the cards or the locations that you're buying and selling are communal. So if you're selling something, you are putting it available to other players, but that doesn't mean that you cannot buy it yourself later. So sometimes you're selling them in the most profitable months, getting some extra cash, and hopefully it's still going to be there to buy it later for the end game scoring. So you're kind of putting it up in a risky zone if you're selling it, but it is because it is communal, but it doesn't mean that you cannot get it yourself back later.
Gotcha. Okay. So, with all of this being said, what are some things that make it stand out in particular? There's a lot of games, especially that I've been playing recently, that deal with like the different values changing up and down. What makes this one stand out aside from that roll and write piece?
Well, I actually just find the actual cash flow line quite different. It makes it feel different. You have to be quite careful with managing that because I think only twice in the entire game you get a chance to do like a double sell action, and you want to make sure you're doing your double sell action so that you don't go beyond the maximum cash flow, because you are capped at how much cash you can have at any time. So I want to be kind of selling when you're low, getting that cash back, but still keeping hold of, then investing that money into getting more properties. So yeah, it's quite a cool balancing act, and it's, considering how light it is, there's quite a lot going on here.
That's super cool. So you have timing, you have all of this stuff that you're managing together, and it looks like there's potentially player abilities or powers. Is that what these are?
Yes, they are. I've only played with the very basic ones at the moment, which is the reverse side of these, where each player gets like a 1 extra stock in each of the different colors. But these ones, they don't look terribly expensive, terribly more complicated. I think you get, because there's another track you're climbing, which if you were the highest on it, you get some extra points at the end of the game. So you might get a little boost on one of those. I think you might get an extra sell action or an extra double sell action. So they're very minor, but yeah, they are different, I suppose.
Cool. So it has a reason that you're going to be coming back again and again. I'm looking forward to this one coming out. I love this style of game where you're trying to fluctuate values and figure out the time of when to buy and when to sell. And I think that makes sense. Managing that line for not just your cash flow, but your resources that are available to you to continue this sounds like a lot of fun. Anything else to look out for when it comes to World Exchangers? I know you said this one isn't quite available yet.
No, just I was expecting to like it because I thought it'd be different, but it's nice that you get a real economic feeling game in a small box, very easy to teach, nice and quick, but it still has a lot going on here. So strikes a really nice balance for me.
Perfect. So that is World Exchangers. That's Dan's first game that he's been playing. We'll go ahead and move to my game, and I previewed this on my stream with Corinne a little bit. I've been playing a lot recently of The Witcher Old World. This is a much anticipated Kickstarter delivery. It's one that I backed because I did enjoy the Witcher TV series. I played a little bit of the video game. Have not read any of the books, and I think that the writing definitely comes through in this in the event cards in the story. So it maybe is something that I'm going to check out because I am enjoying it here. But The Witcher Old World is essentially an open world game where you're going to be traveling around the world of The Witcher and fighting different monsters, as well as fighting the other Witchers that are there and trying to train up all of your different abilities and skills. So in the game itself, you do this through 3 single phases. On your first phase, you're going to be moving around a map using the cards in your hand to go to the different locations. Each of the cards has a different location symbol. For example, you can go in the mountains or the water, and you'll be moving around this large map, getting different bonuses. So you move, take the ability, and you can do this as much as you want based on the cards in your hand. So after you move to an area, you'll get some form of special ability. And then after you get to these different areas, if you end in an area where there is a monster, you're going to be able to take on that monster and fight them. You can use potions in order to get special abilities before you do your attacks, but then the monster is going to be populating its health with these attack cards. And your goal is to deplete that monster's health before it depletes your deck as well as your hand of cards. So your hand is what I find the most fun, is this combat system where you are going to be building your deck, the deck building style. And the cards that you put in your deck have different symbols as well as these combo connectors. So you're always trying to tag these symbols based on their colors and using them to let you play more cards. So let's say that you played this one on the far left. It's got that yellow with a purple symbol. And if you combo that to a purple, then you gain the bonus inside, which is 2 extra damage. Then that purple has a green combo extender, which can move on to this next card, which is double shield. And this one has a yellow combo extender. No more yellow cards, though, unfortunately. So you won't be able to continue that combo further. So you'd be stuck with just those 3 cards. But of course, you can mix and match these symbols where they are, and you're always trying to get more, deal more damage, be able to defend yourself. But it's such a interesting puzzle because your hand of cards is also your health. So if you are spending your cards to deal damage, then you're also losing them from your hand, which means that's your own health pool. So you're always trying to get more than one thing from each of these cards, or maybe just be the person that hits first. It's a management of your deck, your hand, as well as the resources on each of those cards and when you're able to play them. Trying to get as much as you can and deplete that enemy deck. And then in that combat, you're also able to use your different stats that you've been training on the board. You have some that give you a defense cap, how much defense you can actually have, giving you additional card draw at the end of each of your rounds, the amount of potions you can use in each battle, as well as your own special Witcher ability. So that main movement phase is getting all of these traits and abilities so that you're able to actually move forward into these fights with the advantage, and then hopefully gain enough trophies. And you get those by killing monsters or by developing your stats high enough, or the ultimate one is attacking other players. And so you can have some PvP combat, and they give you this way that you can bid on the other players to see if you're actually going to, you can get some money for bidding on who's actually going to win the combat. So it's supposed to help you engage in those higher player count games. That is one thing that I did want to talk about this game in particular, is the action structure and the turn phases and how it's scaring me to want to play this game with more than 2 players. So the way that the game is structured is on your turn, you do your action phase where you're moving around that map and you're able to take as many actions as you want. You move, you do a thing, you move, you do a thing. And then if you're in that spot with that monster, you fight that monster and you do your battle, or you fight another Witcher. And then you have this buying phase where you can buy new cards into your hand and you shuffle your deck up. Now, the downtime in this game is really scary, honestly. It reminds me of something like Western Legends or Dead Reckoning, where it's when it's not your turn, you're not really doing anything. You're just sitting there, you're waiting. It's because all of those actions are pushed into that one single turn. And this sort of design is what keeps games from being the top of my wanting to play list, like Oath or like Dead Reckoning, because all those actions are squished into that one portion. Whereas things like Terra Mystica, you have those small actions that you're taking a whole bunch of spread out between the different players' turns. And so it's scaring me from playing this with the multiplayer setting, particularly in the standard gameplay mode. But I think that it does an awesome job with the expansion on changing up this system. So there is an expansion for actually, there's like 20 expansions for The Witcher Old World. And one of them in particular, though, is a cooperative expansion called The Wild Hunt. And I've played this with my wife. We played a two-player game of this. And the way that they do the action system in this is brilliant. What they do is they allow all players to take every action phase at the same time, and you're communicating with each other on who is going to be taking the action when. You can take all your actions in a row if you really need to. Maybe that's important so you can see what the results of your actions are going to be. Maybe one player goes back and forth. You just go back and forth with your actions. And it's all up to you on who's taking one action which. It's a more fluid turn structure, and you're all doing things at the same time. Everyone is engaged the entire time. I love this. So I think that the Witcher Old World Wild Hunt cooperative expansion balances this turn structure in an awesome way. But the two-player version is fun because the person who's not playing is playing as the monster, or they're playing as the person who's reading the story prompts. But it does scare me from wanting to play this in that 3-player or higher setting because of that potential downtime. So I'm looking forward to hearing what people think about that higher player count, but I don't know if I'm ready to dedicate my time to something like this. Have you heard of The Witcher Old World, Dan? Is this phenomenon of ridiculous downtime something that you try to stay away from? What do you think about this?
So my friend, who's not actually an avid board gamer, actually backed this game.
Mm-hmm.
So we are going to play it soon, hopefully. I think he bought it more to paint everything, but yeah, I'm quite excited to play it because I do like The Witcher. I have read some of the books. Wasn't so keen on the TV program, but and I haven't played the computer games either. But
Mm-hmm.
I do like the world. I do like the story. So maybe going into it, and I know there's going to be a lot of downtime, I can prepare for it, or we can find something that's going to suit us. Maybe play that what's it called, the Great Hunt, whatever it's called, Wild Hunt.
Yeah, the Wild Hunt.
Wild Hunt. When we are playing with higher player counts, but yeah, I'm keen to try it. It's not normally my thing I'd try, but it's something different. And again, I do like the IP. So maybe be a bit cautious about the downtime, but yeah, we shall see. I'm open-minded. Let's go in. Hopefully, it's going to be good.
Yeah, I hope that you enjoyed this one. And my strong recommendation is play at that lower player count right now, because it was perfect. I think the game was exactly what we wanted it to be. You're just exploring that world, and the combat system is clever and exciting, and I love it. The fact that you are engaged the whole time, and if you're playing that 2-player, if you are fighting another Witcher, it's you too. So I think it'll be a great time with being able to play that one-on-one setting. When you do play this, what player count do you think you're going to play at?
I imagine it'll probably be 3. Maybe 4. I'm not sure. So only because it's my kind of friend who's not a huge board gamer. If he's going to join us, it'll be with 3 of us regulars. So it's probably going to be a 4-player if I'm honest.
Okay, so I'll probably pick your brain when that happens before I try to play this with 4 players myself. I think 3 might be the max that I try to do, just to see if it really is that bad. Because games like Western Legends that have that open turn structure, I don't really want to play with more than 2 because the downtime is so prevalent. It kind of sucks because you're just sitting there doing nothing, and there's no ways to engage on other turns. And if it is engagement, it's not very much engagement, and that's something that drives me off these games. And the more I play Witcher Old World, the more I'm like, wow, why would I ever play these other style of games when I could play this one if they're all competing for that 2-player game space?
Yeah, cool. I mean, it's good. I'm glad to hear that it's actually a good, solid game there. And again, I am intrigued by that combat system. So yeah, sounds good.
Yeah, so I've been enjoying The Witcher Old World. It takes some of the combat that I enjoyed from things like Tainted Grail, puts it into this more compact package, definitely more streamlined in general, and it's a world that I'm excited to explore more of. The cooperative and solo mode are a lot of fun and things that I'm excited to return to, which I love that it actually has a functional solo and cooperative mode. So that is The Witcher Old World. Dan, what's your next game here that you got for me?
Yeah, so I've got another very light game, and another new one, actually. This has just come out this year by Is in AA. This is a tile placement game, very light one. Simple placement rules. Get buildings adjacent to these same coloured tiles. That's pretty much the objective of the game. But the way you gain the tiles is where the fun lies, because it does utilise the I split you choose mechanism, where you're drawing, I believe it's 5 tiles at a time. And then you are dividing up however you see fit. You can do a 1 and a 4, you can do a 3 and a 2, whatever you want. You can even do a 5 and a 0 if you wanted to. And then one of your opponents to your left or to your right is going to take one of those tiles and add it to their little tableau. And the one that they have in front of them that wasn't taken, they'll also get to add those to their tableau as well. Trying to optimally place them. But the little twist in this one is that the smallest pile of the two, you get one of these gems for, and the gems do rack up some big points if you really focus on that. So it's quite a viable strategy to take the lower amount of tiles often, because that's a lot of points you could potentially have. But I do like this other kind of level to the game where you can actually see what buildings are going to come out in your opponent's tiles to think, you know what, now was the time to get that coloured building, though it's not going to come out later for me, which of course your opponent could leverage that against you to really extort you and try to give you as little as they possibly can. But yeah, this is one of those games that I would play anytime, anywhere. Takes 20 minutes to play. It's very pleasant. Just enough decisions there to keep it in. The top place, I think, is actually good that it hasn't made it too. They kept it simple and really focused on that I split you choose mechanism nicely. So yeah, this one staying on my shelf, and it's a game I'm going to play a lot in the future. So that is Rome in a Day.
So what got you interested in this one? This is one that I have not heard of at all. And you said that this is going to be one that you are continuously playing afterwards. Where does it stand in this other style of I Split You Choose? How do the different player counts look?
Well, the good thing about this one is that it is pretty much simultaneous play. So it can, I think it can accommodates up to 6 players. So regardless of the player count, it's going to scale wonderfully. I've actually only played it 2 players so far, which you can definitely focus on what your opponent wants, and you got a bit more. You can stay on top of things a bit better. But I think this came to my attention because it was somewhat showcased at the UK Games Expo. The UK Games Expo isn't a massive convention to release new games, but this was one of the feature games because Alley-Cat Games are one of the few UK publishers. So maybe their advertising worked on me, but it's nice. It's just a nice game that I can play anytime. I can get it so quick to explain, set up, teach, and play, and those games always rack up the plays for me and keep me coming back. So yeah, it's just pleasant, really.
Excellent. And I can totally appreciate games like that. Some of my favorite ones to just carry around with me and then just play a couple of games here and there. Now, what are these in particular? So are these just reference cards, or is this the I Split You Choose portion?
Yeah, so basically that's just showing... well, I didn't actually use these because I didn't need them, but basically it's showing... I think it's showing what side you're giving to and what side you're taking from. Because every alternate round you work with a different neighbor, essentially.
Gotcha. Okay. Anything else to add on Rome in a Day, or anything else? Any other tidbits about this?
Not really. I mean, it's very light, but it's still good. So yeah, it's not really much more to it, but yeah, I like it.
All right. So that is Rome in a Day from Alley-Cat Games. Is that right?
Yes, it is. Yeah.
Excellent. All right, this next game that I want to talk about is another cooperative game that also features lots of miniatures, but it is a straight-to-retail game that's based on another existing IP. This is Stranger Things Upside Down. Now, I originally checked this out because I do enjoy the Stranger Things series. I think it's a lot of fun, and this was supposed to be a thematic take on a cooperative setting made by Rob Davio, so lots of pedigree here with cooperative game design under the belt. Now, what this game boils down to is you are living out the scenes of the original game, of the original first 2 seasons of Stranger Things. And the way that it works is you are going to be moving around the city of Hawkins and trying to complete skill tests in order to defeat whatever the enemies or the threats are, as well as the underlying thing here is save Will. So in both seasons, are you unfamiliar? Have you seen this show at all? Am I giving you spoilers right now with what's happening?
I've seen a couple of episodes, not many though.
Okay. So, in a nutshell, a boy goes missing. His name is Will, and your goal is to find and save Will. And in the second series, you have found Will, but you still have to save him from something. And so that becomes the objective, the win condition of both of the game modes in this. So, there's one map where you're saving him from being kidnapped, essentially, and in the second one, you're saving him from something else. And so that's what you're doing in the different settings here. And the way it works is it's through a test system with these tokens. So, at the start of each game, you're going to be stacking all of these stacks of tokens. They go from 0 to 5 into these piles on each of the actions that you can potentially take. And then whenever you decide to take one of these non like guaranteed actions, you commit action cards from your hand that have a certain value. Now, the action cards serve as how strong you're taking the action, what you're committing to, but they also serve as the timer for the game. If you ever deplete the action card deck, you shuffle it back up. If it happens 3 times, you lose. So you're trying to conserve your actions when doing these things, but you're also trying to maybe save some, collect large amounts of them. So when you take these tests, you have higher numbers. So based on how many cards you're committing, then you'll reveal the tokens that are in that stack. And if you've met that number or exceeded it, you pass the test. Generally, if you're fighting something, you're going to remove those tokens of that enemy from the board. If it's like a save will action, you just remove those tokens and you're part of the way there. And then you'll draw cards back up to your hand size at the end of the round. If you ever fail one of these tests, though, you take damage equal to the difference. It's called fear. And if anybody ever has max fear, the team automatically loses. So your goal is to try to commit as many cards as possible without going too far over. So you're trying to meet that medium. There's other actions that you can use to get information, maybe flip over different tiles so you can see what your odds could potentially be. Based on the number of tokens, there is a set distribution, so you can use that information to figure out what's going on. And that ultimate goal is to flip over those stacks that have those save wills and get through the barricades that would eventually stop you from getting there. So with that all being said, I think that the action system of this game is awesome, and I think that the test system makes a lot of sense. However, after playing this game a couple of times, and I think I might actually drop my rating a star here, it feels exactly the same, unfortunately. So I feel like I don't need to pull this game out anymore, which is pretty sad because of how thematic and cool it is. But the gameplay itself is pretty straightforward and a little bit too on the nose for me. The game flow generally has you going in, you get items. The items let you do other tests well. Once you have those items, you go do those tests. And then once you do those tests, you win the game. That's it. So that's like the game flow. And it doesn't really branch from that. Yes, you have the 2 different maps, but the objective is still the same. Save will, clear that stack of tokens. There's no other dynamic nature to the order in which you're doing things. It's pretty much all the same thing. You're going to be getting allies and items to help you do those tasks, and then you do those tasks, and that's it. So maybe I will try it again with maybe higher player counts, 4 players, 3 players. You do have to have people that are into the theme, though, I think, because it is so thematic. It's ingrained in that. It's an odd one. So I don't know if I wish I could see this game in something that had more modularity, more things going on, and more things were done with the results of resolving those tests and those token challenges. Because I think that test system is awesome. The action system makes so much sense, but I think that this game is pretty weak when it comes to actually what is happening with those tests. So I'm actually going to go change that rating now to a 6. But just talking through this, I think that I wish that this game just had more. So that's Stranger Things Upside Down. This one that you've heard of, you've seen people play. What do you think of that token system?
I have heard of it, and I think I caught a Dice Tower summary video where they all rated it really highly, which surprised me. But yeah, I've never played it. I don't know much about it other than that, really. But yeah, if you're doing the same thing every single game, it feels like it's a bit on rails, I suppose. I mean, is there any significant luck factor in it? So basically, if you play the same way each time, you're always going to win, or I don't really know the variables.
So the biggest luck factor comes from those stacks of tokens, but because they're equally distributed based on where they are, it's going to make your other tests easier. So I don't think there's any severe luck. And you are going to see every single action card because you do go through that entire deck. So not a lot of luck there. It's all based on, I guess, when you do things, but that's not even the case because most of the time when you're digging for items, when you're digging for characters, you can commit action cards there in order to draw more. So you can see more of the deck and you can actually get exactly the card that you need. We were playing last time and Ariana was looking for specific cards to do the save will action. That's like the main objective. So somebody needs to do that basically, which is also something I dislike where somebody has to fulfill a certain role every single time you play. But you she basically looked through the entire item deck to find the 2 best cards for this stat, and then kept those and never did the item action again. There was no reason to. So it was first action do this, second action do that, and then just save will until the event deck says that we can progress. So I'm just talking about it now. I might bump this down to a 5. Oh my gosh. Oh, there's more things that I'm disliking about this. Oh my gosh, I'm talking myself out of it. It's like one mechanism that's awesome in a game that's not great, which is so sad. The theme is cool, the miniatures is great, the production is so awesome, but I think the game is just too weak. So it's pretty disappointing. It reminds me a lot of Horrified, where you have this core mechanism of like, in that game, it's pick up and deliver, but you don't have the variability or the excitement or the intrigue or the interesting things that can happen in the game system. So I think Horrified is an excellent game. It has the different monsters that work together. You're managing the different creatures and how they move. You have that push your luck nature of what monster you need to be worried about at what time, and different things that you're progressing on. And based on your decisions, it's going to determine how your game ends up, because of what monsters you're defeating at what time. But this one here, you have that set path, those scripted roles, and the actions that you're sort of required to take each time. And I don't know. I think I'm probably going to get rid of this one. Like, after this conversation, I don't know if I even want to play this game 3 or 4 players, because I think the same thing might happen, where it's just going to be those scripted roles. So pretty sad. As Stranger Things upside down. I bet you're really excited to look and try this one now. Huh?
Nah, I think I'll avoid this one. It sounds very on rails, I suppose.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to describe it, unfortunately. That is Stranger Things upside down. All right, Dan, your third game. What's your next one we're talking about?
Yeah, my third and final one is another very light filler. This is Nimalia. So Nimalia, I recently did a little ranking video, and this came out at number 1.
Whoa, okay.
Out the latest 10 games, or most recent 10 games that I played. Really like this one. It's a very charming little game that does absolutely nothing new at all. But what it does, all the different games it cherry picks from, I think I prefer this too. So basically, you have these cards. The cards are divided up into quarters, and you have different terrain on each quarter and a different animal or something on each quarter. And it's one of these games where you are overlapping the cards, much like Squirrel Wagons, Hokkaido, Sprawlopolis. There's tons of these games. This game does the same thing. But this one, you are trying to place these cards to cater to these public objectives. And the public objective system works much like something like Cartographers and like Isle of Skye. So you have variable objectives that will score in basically a pair will score in different orders each round, essentially. So, round 1, A and B will score. Round 2, maybe B and C. Round 3, D and B. You get it. But it's actually very nice, because you can tailor the difficulty of these objectives. You have very simple ones, or you have very difficult ones. Some of them use these rivers where you're trying to get the longest river, or some might say your biggest savanna will score. Every one of these animals next to this terrain will score. And I like that scoring system, because it lets you zig and zag at the right times. You might think, what, I'm done with that objective now. Now I can move on to this one and forget about that one and start focusing on that one. So it's ultra quick. I think it's 5 rounds. It's 5 rounds, just drafting 3 cards, placing them on your tableau, and going again. So lightning quick, but it still has that really puzzly nature that is going to catch even experienced gamers off guard, because it is difficult to overlap these cards. So these kind of games that strike that balance of being so easy to explain but not solvable, those again are always hits for me, because there's no way, it doesn't matter how experienced you are, you cannot be good at this game without racking your brain, because it is so it is so puzzly. But it's an absolute delight. Comes in a tiny little box, very affordable, and it's just very nice. And I can see this one being a bit of a sleeper hit, maybe, because it looks very unassuming. How many wildlife games are out there at the moment, so it can definitely get lost in the shuffle. But I think the gameplay is rock solid, and I'm enjoying it a hell of a lot.
This sounds excellent. So I do have a quick question on how you acquire cards in this game. Are you drawing them randomly from a deck? Are you drafting them? How is that working?
Yeah, you're doing a very traditional pass and draft. 3 cards, pick one, pass to your neighbor, and so on. 3-card draft, and then place them one after another. So simple as that.
All right. Okay. I love this. It's perfect. It's exactly what you'd imagine. You're having to make commitments based on the scoring factors. You're having to decide when to cut things off. I'm surprised more games haven't stolen this concept and use it all the time. It works well in Ohanami, as you described, in Isle of Skye, as well as Cartographers. It's brilliant. It allows you to weigh your scoring decisions and decide how you want to pursue it. I love it. This is perfect.
Yeah,
Excellent.
that's right. Not that many games have done it, as you said. Yeah.
All right. Anything else on Nimalia? Is there anything else you're wanting from a game like this?
No, I think the beauty in it is how minimalist it is. To be honest, I think it's spot on. Maybe more scoring cards would be nice. A nice little pack of more variable objectives just to keep it going. But there is a ton in the box anyway, so I am really nitpicking there.
Perfect. So that is Nimalia. This is one I will definitely be looking for. Now, out of the three that you showed us here, Roman a Day, Nimalia, and World Exchangers, which would you recommend that we go get for our library?
Out of the three of them, I prefer World Exchangers. My
Whoa,
favorite
okay.
of the three. They're all. Then I'd put Nimalia after it, and then I'd put Red Day. But I do like them all a lot, so this is very positive, opinion on these three games.
Awesome. I am glad to hear this. So that is Nimalia. Great recommendation from Dan. And then my last game here is an expansion to an existing game, one of my favorite games. This is the expansion to Crokinole. Now, does Crokinole need an expansion? No. Is this expansion great? Yes. So Crokinole Imperium is essentially a collection of house rules that are put into a game system for a pre-existing flicking game called Crokinole. In Crokinole, the whole goal is to get your discs as close to the center as possible, and based on the difference of your scores at the end, you're going to gain some points, and it's a first to a certain point threshold. In Crokinole Imperium, though, it changes the scoring criteria and instead gives you mini challenges to play. But there's also 3 game modes in here. I've only played 2 of them so far. So at the start of each game, you're going to decide what mission or what type you want to play. And the way it works is there's one that gives you special abilities or powers when you play, and then there are some that will drastically change how the entire game is played. For example, we played one recently where, let's take a look at this one here. Hit an opponent's disc by shooting your disc straight through 2 sets of pegs. So you have these these special ability cards that if you fulfill them, it gives you an additional bonus point or something like that. So that's one thing that you can chase for. Let me find one of the drastic changes. Here we go. So Swamp. This is one that's going to completely change how the round is played. So when a disc lands in the 20 hole, remove all other discs from the board, and it scores 20 points if it was a valid shot. So a lot of the times when you're playing Crokinole, once somebody starts winning, it's hard to get past this. You'll get to a point where maybe you're just trying to save some points. And that is sort of the fun in it, where even though you're losing a specific round, you can try to make up ground. But the Crokinole Imperium cards will add these insane abilities or powers. Like this is straight up a Death Star. If you make it into the middle space, you blow up everything else that's on the board. And so that's the shot that you're trying to make. And if you can get it, you essentially reset the round to 0. Now, with cards like this, they're going to make it so that the scores are going to be drastic. You're going to have some complete blowouts based on some of these cards. So what they've done is if you win a round, it doesn't matter how much you win by, you get a single point. And it's like a first to 5 points. So even though there can be these potential ridiculous score swings, it balances this all by just reducing that win to a single point. So I think that's a really smart decision, because otherwise, based on what cards came out at what time, your entire match, if it was like first to 150, would be over before you even started. So I love that they've changed up the scoring a bit for something like this. But I'm having a lot of fun playing this. I think it adds some dynamic nature to the shots that you're making, pushing you to make risky plays because you want to try to fulfill this interesting scoring condition. And it still feels like Crokinole, and I think that's the most important part. So that's Crokinole Imperium. If you don't know about this, give it a try. It's wonderful. Do you play Crokinole at all, Dan? What are your thoughts on this dexterity style and this pre-packaged house rules, essentially?
I've never played Crokinole, but I've heard nothing but good things about it, and I'm always quite fascinated to understand why. Because for me, every dexterity game I've played, I've enjoyed it for 10 minutes, and then I'm ready to move on to the next thing. But Crokinole seems to have some staying power, and it seems to have some reverence, and people love it. But
I don't know how to describe it. I think it's the
and
play, honestly. The fact that you're balancing the table based on who's there, that your skill gets better in that session that you're playing, at least that's what it feels like to me, and that you are cooperating and coordinating, and the game encourages you to have this interaction And then because of that interaction, the board state is evolving as you play. So I think that's the most succinct I can put it as to the draw of Crokinole. And Crokinole Imperium takes that and turns it up a little bit by adding these strange house rules, which I think is a lot of fun. I know you said you'd be bored in like 10 minutes. Do you have any dexterity games that you do really enjoy that you come back to?
I don't think I have any. No, every single one I've had, I kind of one play and I'm done really. So I could be missing one here, but I can't think of any that I've really enjoyed that much.
Okay, have you played Coconuts?
No, I have not.
All right, man. You got to try Crokinole and Coconuts. Those are my two.
Okay.
I'm trying to think if those are my highest rated dexterity games. I think they might be. Ooh, Junkart's up there too. Junkart's a really good one. Junkart, Crokinole Imperium, and Coconuts. Those would be my 3 biggest recommendations, I think. 10, 9, and 8.
Okay. I've not tried it.
All right. So this is your challenge. If you're in the comments right now, let Dan know what dexterity games he needs to prioritize playing, and his next top 10 or whatever is going to be all of the dexterity games that he's played. I'm looking forward to him having these games that he's played for a combined total of 100 minutes and then gone ahead and sold off afterwards. So that is Crokinole Imperium.
Yeah.
So that is our first section. These are the games that Dan and I have been playing in these last couple of weeks. And now we're going to go ahead and move on to our next section. This is the crowdfunding picks. We talk about different Kickstarters, game founds, anything that's on a crowdfunding platform that we're interested or excited in. So Dan, is there anything on crowdfunding that you're looking forward to or that's on right now?
No, not right now, or nothing I'm aware of. But between now and the last episode, I did back Carson City Big Box, so at least I backed something on Game Found.
Excellent. So that is Carson City. What is Carson City? What is this?
So it's a educational replacement game many years ago. It's from the same design. It's the a 1-star one where you're actually having like jewels and stuff to actually claim the workplace. So but this one has been off the market for such a long time, and it's kind of it's started to build up over the years. So it's real again, and I've kind of seized the opportunity to get my hands on it.
Interesting. Ooh, and they have a solo mode now, a fancy insert. I see. But you said that the main thing about this is that interaction, right? The fighting for the actual different areas on the board. I like this style, though. I like that concept of that shared board that you're all competing for, particularly when it's combined with worker placement. That sounds like a lot of fun. Have you played games like Whistle Mountain or anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's quite a
mechanism. Oh, go for it.
Yes, I have. Sorry, I have played Whistle Mountain. I liked it. I thought it was a little bit too forgiving in terms of the amount of resources you get. And I seem to feel that way about a lot of the. I think it's Luke Laurie is the designer. I felt the same way about one of the Energy Empire games as well. I just found it a bit too forgiving in terms of always having what you need.
All right. So hopefully that this one gives you a little bit more bite to what you're looking for and some tightness. So that is Carson City, one that Dan actually did back on crowdfunding. Very rare occasion for this channel. So next up, we go to mine, and this is the new Awakened Realms project. This is S.T.A.L.K.E.R. Now, the reason that I am so excited for this one is I enjoy most of Awakened Realms games that they do put out, and S.T.A.L.K.E.R. in particular is a post-apocalyptic stealth game. If anybody has watched any of the recent videos on my channel, I have been loving Assassin's Creed, and it's one that I am just having so much fun with, and that is a stealth game at its heart. So having one that's set in this setting that I believe it's based off of a video game, but getting brought to us with the Awakened Realms treatment sounds like a blast. It's also done in a campaign setting, but these campaigns are only 3 missions long. So you get them done in about 6 hours for the 3 missions, which I love having these smaller linked connectors. It's the reason that I like the Dream Eaters campaign from Arkham Horror, because you get to do more, but you still get that storytelling in a shortened amount of time. So I love that. So S.T.A.L.K.E.R. is that post-apocalyptic setting, post-apocalyptic post-apocalyptic setting as you are using your action points to move around these different maps, reading story bits, and also dealing with these terrible atrocities that are out in this area. I like all of the different gear and weapons that are part of this, and I've been playing a lot of 51st State recently, and that has this similar setting, but looking forward to one where I can actually interact and go with it. It looks like the sort of game that I wanted Fallout to be, the Fallout board game, and I'm hoping that that Awakened Realms treatment does it justice. So looking forward to this one. That is S.T.A.L.K.E.R. Have you heard about this? Have you played the game? What do you think about post-apocalyptic themes in general?
I've only heard about this in the last couple of days. I think I don't know anything about
Okay.
the computer game. I didn't even know it was a thing. So, but post-apocalyptic games, I don't think I've played too many. I did play that Fallout game, and I thought it was absolutely terrible. One of the worst games I've ever played. Other ones, I can't really think of too many. So it's kind of a theme that's evaded me, I suppose. But yeah, I don't know bare minimum about this.
Oh no. Okay, well, let's hope for the best with Awakened Realms. They've crushed it before, and I'm looking forward to their concept of this shorter style campaign game. I think that their storytelling is top notch. Nemesis is one of my favorites. So getting something that has that story in a smaller experience, something that I love. So that is S.T.A.L.K.E.R. That's my crowdfunding pick for this week. That's the side game selection. So now I'll move on to our next section here. This is our card and component appreciation, where we talk about a specific card or something in a game that we just love, whether it be the way it looks, the way that it functions, or maybe just the thematic nature or something over the top. Dan, what is your card or component that you appreciate this week?
Yeah, so the reason I've gone for mine is for that thematic nature, and this is for the game called Treasure Island, which I just played for the first time the other day. It's a deduction style game as you're trying to walk around this map and find where the treasure is buried by getting clues off like kind of games master. But I like the way that you can kind of rule out area map, and some of these things that the games master are giving you are like radiuses on, it could be within 6 miles, it could be on, within this distance, and you are physically using this scale map and using like compasses to draw out circles and things. So that's the actual component I'm speaking about, is the compass, where you're putting your dry eraser in there. You're saying that it could be within 6 miles of this. You're drawing your big ring, and you can black out everything else. So very simple game, but I think the thematics in this one comes through really strongly. And yeah, I love that idea that you have a physical compass that you can draw a radius of a bit of land where the treasure is going to be, or where it's not going to be. Just a really novel concept, and I like the way that it's all in scale, I suppose.
So this is an architecture compass, right? Like the tool, it's got like the side. Okay, I see it right there with the pencils on it. All right.
Yeah. I don't know if that's the right terminology, if it is compass, but
oh no, you're right.
that's
It's a
what I
compass.
referred it to.
That's exactly what it's called. Oh, check it out. Okay, sweet. So you're actually drawing. So when you're getting clues, what sort of clues are you asking? Like, is it a radius of like 4 inches or something like that? Are there measurements on the compass that help you with this?
Yes, there are measurements on the compass, and if someone might say, well, it's north of this area, or it will say it could be within 6 miles of this particular landmark, all these kind of things. So it's nice that it's an open map, and it's quite tangible if you are reading a real map and blacking things out on your little personal player sheet and stuff like that, and watching where if people are starting to search for things, you might think, well, they're onto something, so I'll start digging near them. It's just quite thematic.
I love it. This is so cool. The production is lovely, and I like that concept of using these real measurements to navigate an actual place. Awesome. Anything else on Treasure Island you want to add?
No, not really. It's just it just works as you think it would work, and that's what I like about it.
That is perfect. An intuitive and thematic game mechanism or component is always one of the best kinds, I think. So excellent. That is the Treasure Island Compass. All right, moving on to my game. I've been playing a lot of Arkham Horror recently, and I got to feature one of the cards that I just think is so much fun from the current campaign I'm playing. So right now, one of the characters I'm playing is Vincent Lee. He is the doctor on our expedition through Innsmouth. So this is the Innsmouth conspiracy, fighting all sorts of fish people. And this character has a big focus on healing. And whenever he heals somebody, he's able to give extra icons for that next player's test. But the card that I want to talk about in particular is Vincent's signature card, and this is the Bonesaw. So the way the Bonesaw works is it's a single hand weapon that you can put onto your character, and for one of your actions, you can use it to deal some damage. You're doing a fight action, and this fight action is going to have you... Oh, let me bring it up real quick. Okay, so this Arkham Horror, the card game, that's what it looks like. But the fight action itself is going to have you, obviously you're using a Bonesaw blade, so it's going to give you some extra damage, but you also can deal yourself damage in order to get extra damage for the attack. I love this because it allows you to get some synergies with Vincent, because if you give yourself damage, you're able to heal it and then trigger all of your healing stuff. But on top of this, it features one of the most thematic flavor text, not flavor text, but thematic gameplay from text on the card with this emergent storytelling. You can take as an action a heal 5 damage from an investigator action at your location. So you bring them over, you're like, okay, hold still. You put them down on the table, you pull out your Bonesaw, and you heal 5 damage from them. But afterwards, you have to test your book, which is your I guess literacy, your knowledge of what's going on here, your medical knowledge. And if you fail this medical knowledge test, then that investigator suffers a physical trauma. So you're cutting them up. You're like, okay, I got this. Okay, yes, I'm going to heal you. It's going to work. And then if you fail this book test, you've permanently damage them for the rest of the campaign. And now every time they start a mission for the future, now they start with a damage on their character. Now this could be a positive thing, right? Because you can heal them now. They start with some damage. That gives you something that you can put some of your healing towards. But also it's just hilariously thematic that you're like, hold still, and then you cut them up, you heal them up, and you did a terrible job. So they're just forever hurt based on the decision that you made there. I think it's so much fun. And I actually have used this. I used it during my first mission, where it's pretty brutal, taking a lot of damage. So it actually turned out to be pretty helpful, doing 1 heal 5 for a single action. Super useful, super thematic, and ultra fun. That is the Bonesaw from Arkham Horror, the card game. I love this. This is perfect.
Very cool. I like it.
So much fun. All right, so that is our card and component appreciation. Now we're going to move on to this or that. This is where we bring up a topic and talk about which one that we prefer. So last week, do you remember what our discussion was about, Dan?
Yes, I believe it was preference on whether to teach or be taught board games. So, yeah, do you prefer to teach or do you prefer to be taught?
You got it. And Dan, what side were you on of this question here? Just a quick refresher for the audience.
Yeah, I'm definitely on. Yeah, I'm definitely on the side of teaching. I do enjoy teaching, and I would prefer teaching games myself. Yeah,
that's fair. I totally understand that viewpoint, because sometimes it just sucks when you sit there and somebody's botching a teach. And you're like, oh my God, just let me teach this game, please. You're doing so bad. What am I doing? I've just lost an hour of my life. But I also am on this other side, though. I do very much prefer being taught board games, being the primary rules teacher in my group and having that responsibility and making sure that I do give those flawless teaches. When I get that opportunity to just sit back and not have to do anything, sure, take an hour, take a half hour to teach me these rules. That's fine. I don't have any responsibility. I don't got anywhere I got to be. And yeah, we'll talk about in a second here with the audience response as well. So that's where we lie on this issue. Let's take a look at the community poll and see what our community has to think about this. So looking at the poll results, this is actually a pretty close one, with 53% leaning towards Dan's decision of let me teach the board game, and then 47% with the please teach me the board game. And we had one comment here, particularly from Blue S.T.A.L.K.E.R, saying, I typically teach the game, but I'm stoked when others teach the game to me. And this is exactly my thoughts here. I am so thrilled when somebody else is ready. And I even left a comment here. Sometimes I'll have friends teach me games that I have coming in that I know that I've already pre-ordered or I've kickstarted, and maybe they got theirs early. So if I go over to their place and they can teach me this game that I already know that I'm coming, then heck, I can learn the game. I don't have to learn it all myself when it arrives. I'm ready to go once it gets here. And if I don't like the game, I don't even have to open it, and I can just sell it off before I even start diving into it or doing anything with it. So I love that feature. Dan, any comments on this? What are your thoughts on just the response from the audience and the majority on your side?
I'm actually surprised about the results here, because from my life experience and going to games clubs and speaking to gamers, generally speaking, they all hate teaching games. So I'm surprised that it's gone the majority here. But But hey, yeah, I'm not really sure. I'm surprised it was as close as what it was. But yeah, I thought most people would like to sit back and be taught a game rather than be put on the spot and under the pressure to get things right, as you said. But yeah, I enjoy it. I don't find particular pressure for teaching games. I enjoy teaching the games. So maybe more people are like me than I thought.
I do think there definitely is that control, that sense of control when you're the one that gets to teach the game, because you determine the cadence, how you're actually going to do the teach, and you're essentially setting the tone for that whole game. If you make it a rolling teach, then people are playing right away. Or if you want to make sure, based on the people you're with, if you need to set that foundation of, okay, here are all of the rules, that way you don't get any like gotchas later in the game. So I guess it depends on the group and what your setting is. And as you described, based on if you are maybe more of that, I'm just want to sit back and let you do the thing for me and not worry about it myself.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anything else on this topic, Dan?
No, I'm just surprised how close it was, to be honest.
It's kind of wild to me, actually. All right, so that was last week's Do You Prefer to Teach Board Games or to Be Taught Board Games? But this week we have a different type of question that's more focused around a specific game mechanism, and this time it's all about deck building. So if you're unfamiliar with the term of deck building, this is essentially when you have a standard deck of cards of some sort or a hand of cards, and throughout the game you're going to be adding cards to it. Adding cards, removing cards, and customizing this deck based on the decisions that you're making during the game. So our question for this is, in a deck building game, do you prefer a set market or a randomized market? Now, Dan, can you give some examples of what this could be, just in case we need clarification? A set market versus a random market.
Well, hopefully I've understood you right myself. But from what I understand from a set market, I would think of something like the Quest for El Dorado, where there's a set bunch of cards, always going to be the same, and you can pick and choose when you want exactly what you want. Whereas with a random market, it'll be the top 5 cards off the deck, for example, and it could be all great, it could be all crap.
Precisely. You've got a lot more randomness and variance and more tactical play when it comes to that randomized market. But with the set market, you know from turn one what different paths are available and what you can pursue based on the strategy on that turn one. So, Dan, where do you sit on this line? Are you more in the line of something like Dominion with that set market, or are you more in the line of something like Ascension with something that rotates?
I think I would lean towards, I don't feel strongly about this, but I would lean towards the random market, because I like that excitement of, oh, what's coming out next. No, it adds a bit more sense of urgency, I suppose, if there's a great card that you really want and everybody wants the same card, whereas it might be a bit more predictable if you think it's always going to be the same, I'll always do the same pathway, I'll always follow the same route if it's a set market. But I suppose they can counteract that mechanically by having a scarce amount of a certain type of card. So if there's only, say, 2 in the market and there's 4 players, that would still keep the urgency. But yeah, if I had to choose, I would choose the random market.
I'd agree with you. I think the random market is more interesting and exciting. And as you mentioned, it gives you more ways to plan from not necessarily the entire game, but from the turn to turn. Maybe if I save my money for that, I can pressure towards this, or maybe I need to buy this right now just in case somebody else picks it up. Or you can make some pivot points when a new card comes up. You're like, ooh, now I'm going to pick this up and this is going to become an integral part of my strategy. And so you're not making all your decisions at the beginning. And I think it does help with that repetitive gameplay loop. Yeah. So yeah, I totally agree with you here on the set market. Sorry, on the random market. And I did have one other thing that I was talking to Ariana about this right beforehand. And she said that she also loves random markets because it helps with analysis paralysis. She has played games where there are set markets where somebody will look at the board on their first turn and it'll be so long. And then they are just like making their whole plan for the game. And it sucks because you're just like, oh my gosh, just go. Like, you obviously know exactly what you're going to do. So just do it like this. And then at that point, it becomes just going through the motions. You're not really doing anything different. You've already made your decisions. So kind of sucks at the near of the game, and also just super uninteresting when you're the one actually performing those actions. So that's where we're at least. Anything else to add on this topic, Dan?
Yeah, kind of more of the same really. If you've played the game and you've won by following a certain strategy, and you know you can follow that exact same strategy again and win again, stops it coming back to the table, stops the longevity, and again that randomness of the random market keeps you on your toes a bit more tactical, and maybe even force you going down certain strategies that you weren't going to go down before.
Yep, agreed. So be on the lookout. We'll put up that question on the community page and we'll ask you, what do you prefer, set markets or random markets in deck building games? That brings us to our next section. We're going to be going into our mechanism appreciation, a little bit different than the card and component appreciation. This is something that is part of the whole game design and something we appreciate from a game. Starting us off, Dan, what is a mechanism that you are loving currently?
Yes, this is one that I've been exploring recently through a couple of semi-recently acquired, and this is the bidding system in 2 games that use this. The first of which is Jorvik, which is a Steffenfeld game, and also Spyrium, which is an older S.T.A.L.K.E.R game. But the particular bidding mechanism that I like is the fact that you are going for certain cards, trying to bid for them by placing your meeples next to them. Basically, one meeple after another, or the more people go to the same card, whether that's yourself again or somebody else, the price is going up by 1 each time. So you might think, well, basically the person, but if you go there earlier, you get a first refusal. So you might think, well, there's 4 meeples here now. It's going to cost me £4, but I get to go first. It's too expensive for me. I'll pass, remove my meeple, then it'll go to the next person in the queue, and it will only cost them £3 or 3 cash. So I love that kind of push your luck system of, can I get away with getting this cheap? Shall I bid more than once? Shall I try and rack up the prices and extort other players to make them pay more because I know they're going to pay it? Or even if they don't pay it, then I'm going to get it for a good price. So it's just a really simple, clean bidding mechanism that really does kind of balance itself out, really. Because if there's a great card there, there's going to be a really long queue next to it. And I love the way that works.
Oh, that's brilliant. Yeah, this is excellent. And I feel like I've seen iterations of this in games afterwards. One in particular, I think, is Stockpile, where just based on your presence on different locations, you're able to pressure people to move their different pieces. How does that work with this? Can you reallocate your people from the different queues?
You cannot, no, not in this one.
Oh my gosh, okay.
Yeah, this one you can. But in Spyrium, you can pass and get money, I believe, for every other person there. So you kind of got a win-win situation. But Jorvik is pretty brutal, and you can end up the whole round with nothing. So and money is tight in itself. So yeah, Jorvik is weighting your bids is very, very difficult.
Gotcha. What is this a mechanism you'd like to see in more games employed? What do you think it would work with thematically?
I'm not sure, really. I'm not sure. I don't know what to suggest with that. But yeah, I mean, I love bidding games, and this is a really nice bidding mechanism that's not been used a terrible amount of times. So yeah, I would like to see it some more. Why not?
Excellent. So that is the queue bidding system in Jorvik as well as in Spyrium. All right, so mine here is a game that I think uses a mechanism in a thematic sense. This is a cooperative game called Roll Camera. And the point of this game is you are going to be making some movies. So in Roll Camera, your whole goal is to get a script, figure out what sort of sets you need to make for that script, and then take actions using a dice placement system in order to either set up the different scenes with the correct lighting and just dice in general represent the different things that are actually on the film set, or use those dice in order to take other actions that are going to do all the background stuff for the filming process, whether it be getting more funds for your different areas, dealing with some of the problems that deal with the development process, or sometimes you're going to be creating some ideas and trying to see what you can do to increase your ability to actually make a great movie, and whether it be in the background or on the actual set. So my mechanism here is the ideas meeting action. So the way it works is every single character that's playing is going to have 3 cards in their hand that are ideas, and these are essentially different things that you can use that are special powers and abilities. So when you go to the ideas meeting space, you have all of these yellow cards, and every player at the table is going to contribute one of their ideas. It's a meeting. You're all in there. You're saying, okay, here, this is what I think we should do. This is what I think you should do. And you can never explain what your ideas are while they're in your hand, but you can just say that, oh, I have a good idea. You should do a meeting or something like that. Or, oh, my ideas kind of suck right now. I'm at a low point on my ideas or something like that. So when you take this action, everybody's contributing something that that they think will be helpful for whatever the situation is. So everyone is planning and trying to actually engage and participate in this action. And then whoever ran the meeting, whoever's in charge of it, they actually will pick one of those ideas to resolve right away, one that they're going to put on the back burner that they'll maybe use later, and one idea that they think just isn't great at all and they'll discard it. So I like how this thematically is a ideas meeting. You're coming in, taking all of these different contributions for making this film, and then it's shown in that gameplay with actually affecting this production process. So that is the ideas meeting for Roll Camera. What are your thoughts on this one, Dan?
Yeah, it sounds interesting actually. So if I'm thinking right gameplay wise, if somebody comes in with a really strong idea and you have a strong idea yourself, it's probably not the best time to play the strong idea, because you know it's going to go to waste. Is that kind of the idea of it?
So you can save one of the ideas. So it's okay if two show up, but man, if three do come up, you would have to decide between which one you want to use right now. And that can be a real thing. When there are multiple ideas, you have to figure out which one is really the best at the current time. So I like that it does come up, and maybe you have to pick two from two amazing choices, and then unfortunately have to waste time to do the other one at a later time. But I do like that there is that save system, so you can reuse an idea, but it is something to talk about with the other people about who's playing what idea at what time.
Cool. Sounds good.
Sweet. So that is the Roll Camera ideas meeting. And our next section here is a bit of a goofy section. This is our random game section. We go on to BGG, and in particular, we're going to be clicking on that random game function and trying to make some guesses as to what we think it's going to be. Dan, any guesses this week as to what our random game is going to be about?
Let's go something with an Egyptian theme. There we go.
Oh, that's so many games.
Exactly.
I'll give you one better. Something with an animal theme. There you go. Okay, animal versus Egypt. Let us know in the comments, what do you think is going to show up? So we hit our random game button, and we have found Pac-Man the card game. Is Pac-Man an animal? Humans are animals. So is Pac-Man an animal? There's ghosts, so there's some type of being.
It's reaching, I think. You're reaching.
I think it's reaching. You're probably right. Okay. So description, like the arcade game, Pac-Man the card game is a colorful and simple game with mass appeal. It's a brand new pack experience that will quickly get you hooked. 3 ways to play. You can play stage 1, the beginner mode. Your aim is to get the most points without being knocked out by ghosts. Fruit and pack dot cards are worth points. Power-ups have special rules, like having 2 players swap hands, and 3 ghost cards will knock you out of the game. And you can master the level 1 deck and level up to level 2 and level 3 decks, and there's even a bonus stage. So looking at these cards, let's take a look at what these look like. You're trying to stay away from the ghosts. It reminds me a little bit of, just like hearing this, maybe something like Old Maid, where you're passing cards and moving them around and trying not to end up with 3 of the ghost cards in your hand at a time. Do you play any games that use that mechanism of passing cards to each other and some of those cards are negative?
I don't think so. None come to mind.
Okay. I just played this game recently, actually. It's called Monster My Neighbor is what I think it's called. And it's a very similar idea of you have this, it's like a hidden role game almost, where the card that's a negative card is also like the traitor or the werewolf or whatever. And if it ends up in your hand at the end, you win if you play it, but also everybody is looking for the person with that card. So they're trying to find you and eliminate you. And I thought it was brilliant. I thought the game was super fun. It reminds me a lot of Love Letter mixed with Old Maid, which I thought was cool and has a lot of variance because of the different monsters that could potentially be and trying to narrow down who it is. But this one seems like it has that similar feel of moving the Pac-Man around and actually, but not a lot of text on them. So maybe not a great amount of variance aside from the bonus decks and the extra decks.
I wonder if the bonus deck is set in Egypt.
Let's take a look. So let's look at retro fun for the whole family. Get you collect pack dots and fruit, use power-ups, and watch out for the ghosts. So not a lot of text on these cards. Short game time, though. Let's take a look at some of the reviews. What do you think? What do you think you're going to say about this one?
Judging by the rating, not much good.
Okay, let's go middle of the pack here. I guess let's just browse some of the top ones. Way more entertaining than I thought it would be, but still not great. Oh, God. I get that. That's actually a pretty good description of a lot of games. Nobody else has bothered writing words on their comment. Gifted to Charlie. So this guy got rid of his. Nearly thoughtless play. That's rough. Anything else? Ooh, we're almost done with all of the ratings. Pretty brutal. That's it. So the 2 text comments were not a great game, but had way more fun than they thought. And gifted. So unfortunate. So that's Pac-Man the card game. Anything else, Dan? What would you like your perfect Pac-Man the card game to be?
I don't know. But aren't Steamforged a relatively big publisher? I'm quite interested to see why they've published this.
Steamforged Games makes a lot of games based on video games, so I guess this makes
Okay.
sense, right? Like they make Dark Souls and Monster Hunter, so I guess they're on one scale, those giant adventure, large miniatures games, and on this side they've got the small little arcade games too.
Yeah, I'm surprised so few people have played it as well, because I know Pac-Man's not terribly popular, but it's a household name, I suppose.
Everybody knows Pac-Man. Actually, most people probably do know who Pac-Man is, whether it be secondhand or just in general. Yeah. For me, if I could create a Pac-Man game, I think I would make it using. Do you know those labyrinths where you have like the dials on the side and you turn them and it causes the labyrinth to move? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Yes, I think if there was a Pac-Man game, I would like it to be something like that, where maybe you're chasing ghosts. I don't know how you would do it, if there'd be a way that maybe different dials would relate to different pieces or different levels. That could be interesting, of like trying to have two people work on the same labyrinth at the same time.
Or maybe some kind of programming game where somebody's programming the ghosts and you're programming Pac-Man, trying to get to the same locations, get the fruit, whatever it is, and then yeah.
I played a game actually extremely like this. It's called How to Rob a Bank, where you're doing exactly that thing. That game's great. Like I enjoy that game a lot. And so I could see that actually having a Pac-Man theme, and it would work, where you have different, maybe it'd be it'd be an all versus one instead of a one versus all, which is what that one is. That's a cool idea. I like that concept a lot, actually. There you go. Pac-Man, Steamforged Games. Feel free to reach out to Dan and I, and we'll help you out with your next Pac-Man, the card game. And what would your subtitle be? You got to make it. It's got to be new. It's got to be fresh.
Pac-Man in Egypt.
Pac-Man. Sure. Okay. That is our random game section. Now we move on to what I think is the most interesting section in our video. This is the why is this in your collection? We're going to be looking at each other's collections and bringing up a game and discussing why is this in your collection? It could be skepticism as to this game looks like it's trash. Why do you like it? Or why do you still own it? You rate this game poorly. Why do you like it? Or it can be you love this game and why do you love it so much? So Dan, I'm going to have you go first. Actually, I have a game for you. I'll have you, I guess, defend yourself first. I'm curious about this game in particular. It is called Wind the Film. So that's my question to you. It's called Wind the Film, and it's in your collection. It's a Sashi and Sashi game, it looks like. And I don't know a lot of these games, I'll be honest with you. The only one I've played is Coffee Roaster. So I'm curious to know what this one's about and why is it in your collection. Okay,
so Wind the Film is a really good game, and I'm pretty confident you will like it. I think it's right up your alley. This is one of those games where it's simple to play, but it's extremely difficult to do well at. It kind of reminds me of something like Arboretum, where it's very unassuming, but it is very jarring to do well at it. So basically, you are building sets of these cards out, something like Lost Cities, things like that, where you're trying to build, numerical order of cards. But in this one, you have that scout mechanism where you are taking to the front and playing from the back. And you can't reorganize your cards in your hand. But you're drafting these cards from this grid. And the more cards you take, it means the more cards you are forced to play, but you only get one chance to move one card in your hand as far forward as you like. And you have very low margins for errors in this game. You will make tons of breaks in the sequence. It's not a terribly high-scoring game, at least every time I've played this one. But it's one of these games that is just really fascinating, actually, and it's not a game that I feel like playing all the time because it does make you feel so uncomfortable and it is just difficult. But it's that much of a gem that it's definitely stayed in my collection, and I think very highly of it. And I think this is right up your alley, and I think you should give it a go.
Okay, you know me so well. I love feeling uncomfortable when I play small card games. This is awesome. Okay, I like this concept already. So what makes the draft interesting? Is it pretty straightforward and the big choices come from that hand management? What's that look like?
So the drafting is strange because you do have this grid in front of you, like you can see at the back of this picture.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them are perfect information, but some of them are put face down, where you know roughly what those numbers are going to be. And of course, as the game develops, you know that it's going to be if everyone's got every number but the 7, you know it's going to be the 7. But sometimes taking that gamble can hurt you because you just haven't got the capacity to move the cards in your hand, so you're going to end up breaking these sequences. But yeah, it's a very tense game, but I do think highly of it.
All right. Awesome. I'm looking forward to trying this one. So that is Wind the Film. Cool recommendation. I'm glad I chose this one.
Also known as Photograph, if you can't find a copy of Wind the Film.
Okay. Awesome. Excellent. What do you got for me, Dan? What is your why is this in your collection?
Okay, so mine is a Uwe Rosenberg game, actually, and it's one that I don't know the difference between this one and the one I have on my shelf, which I'm not sure if you've played or not, so this might be a bit of a mute question. But
Okay.
the game I'm thinking of is Framework, and I wasn't sure whether to upgrade or change my copy of Nova Luna for Framework or not, so I'm quite interested to hear what your thoughts are about Framework.
Okay. So this is a fine question because I have played both of these games.
Oh,
The
brilliant.
Framework and Nova Luna share this similar mechanism where the whole concept is you are trying to get rid of all of your tokens. And the way that you get rid of tokens is by connecting tiles into a grid in front of you and by matching an objective criteria of some sort. So in Nova Luna, the whole thing is just have certain colors next to this. And this game uses the exact same concept where you just need to have certain colors next to each other. But in this one, you can have tiles that have colors that are the same. So you can have tiles that have multiple colors on them. So it gives you a lot of room for overlap. And so that way, when you're playing colors, you can make combos across your entire board. So the placement is a bit more interesting, in my opinion, on this one, because you have those multicolored tiles that are all over the board. And so you're trying to overlap as much scoring as possible. But that being said, I think that the scoring criteria is a bit more challenging in this one, where you'll have things that are super outlandish or super tricky. And based on the distribution of them on the objective tiles themselves, it makes it for a bit more challenging play. Now, that being said, the game itself in Framework, the biggest strength for me is it feels like you are always playing Framework. And I think that's why I prefer Framework over Nova Luna, is because it replaces the movement system of it reminds me a lot of Patchwork, where whoever's last, you'll move up and take tiles, and based on the strength of that tile, you're spending time. And so whoever is the furthest in back is the one who's taking their turn. But in this one, it's just every single round, whoever's turn it is gets 2 tiles, and whoever's turn it isn't gets 1 tile. And whoever's turn it is, they get the tile first. So it reminds me a lot of Acropolis, where the person who's going first gets 2 tiles, but the last one's not going to be great. And they just have to make do with it. So I love that you're pretty much always playing because of the draft system. You're getting a tile, and then you're finagling that tile. And then it gets back to the other person. After they pick their second tile, that next person takes the bag, sets it up, and then you go again. And it just is always your turn. That's what it feels like in Framework. So I think that the game has been streamlined to the most it can be. And I think that's a great thing for this style of game because it still remains engaging. It still remains challenging with this spatial puzzle. But I think that they have just made it so that you are never going to be bored and never waiting in this game. And I like that sensation a lot. So that's Framework, and that's the difference between the two. And it is my preferred version, so I like Framework a lot. Unfortunately, it is way uglier than Nova Luna, which I think is a big travesty because I think the game is so solid, but it makes sense to keep everything clear and not as cluttered because you want to make sure that you can see the specific tiles. So they pick that white background so that everything else pops. But yeah, it just doesn't look great, which kind of sucks. So that's a big negative for it, unfortunately. So if you're fine with that extra downtime, the Nova Luna could be the one for you. But Framework is my preferred, just looking purely at the mechanisms and the overall game experience. So that's Framework, and that's why that's in our collection.
That's great. Yeah, thanks for that explanation. Yeah. Yeah, I'm going to have to do some thinking actually because I do love that patchwork time system, but when you are playing with 3-4 players, it does feel quite slow. So yeah, this could fix that. And yeah, such a shame about the look because this doesn't look great for color blindness either. So yeah,
They do have different textures, and so I do think it does work well with colored blindness. Is each of the different tiles has a different like building material that it is. So like grain is all of these yellow grain pieces. I mean, you can look at it and you can tell me, like, can you tell the difference between the different building materials?
I can, but the two of them don't pop instantly. So yeah, I mean it's okay. It's not terrible, but it's not great either for me. But yeah, I do like the idea of that drafting system. So you're just drawing what two tiles equal
Number
the
of
amount
players plus one.
plus one.
And then, yep, that's it. And you just go. And this is a game that I'm notoriously awful at. I suck so bad at this game. It's one of those games that I just can't do it. My entire family runs circles around me on this. This is one that we bring to their house, and I just get railed, and they like playing it because they know that I suck at it. Oh man, it's rough, yo. But I enjoy it. It's fun. It's a challenge to me, and I really appreciate that from this game.
No, cool. I will. I may look at changing my copy for this.
All right. So that is a framework. That's why these are in our collection. And that brings us to our last section. And this is just more of a preview as to what's coming up here. What are we looking forward to playing? So, Dan, what are some games that are coming up that you're excited to look at in the near future?
Yeah, so obviously I did have the UK Games Expo, so we bought a ton of games between us. Top of the pile out of all those games, maybe Elysium. Elysium is one that I'm looking forward to playing. Card drafting game from quite a few years back. Heard it's good, so yeah, interested to try that one out. I'm playing some more of the games I've already played, such as Finca. Finca was really nice. And more World Exchanges will be nice to play soon as well. So yeah, just trying to rack up the plays of more recently acquired games, I think.
Totally understandable. Right now, I am looking forward to playing Oathsworn Into the Deepwood. It's my next big campaign game that I'm going to be playing more of. So looking forward to that. And Ariana's going to give it a try as well, which I think is exciting. The fact that you can just drop in and drop out, I think makes it for an awesome campaign experience because you can shift out the difficulty and the complexity based on who's joined. And if she enjoys it, awesome. I'm also looking forward to more Frosthaven. So that'll be on our table soon. And then also looking forward to playing some Star Wars Rebellion. My dad is coming into town next week, and this is one that I want to show him because I think he'll love it because it is that entire Star Wars setting from the original trilogy, and I think he's going to love it. It also has the Rogue One expansion that is included in it, so I'll see that if he enjoys it, we'll throw that one in as well. Looking forward to playing Atlantis Rising Monstrosities. That should be here relatively soon. Supposed to be here yesterday, but had a delay. It's whatever. It's the summer. I got time.
Cool. Sounds good.
I'm gonna have to look for a copy of World Exchangers. That sounds awesome. And I have to look for a copy of the photograph game. So those two, I think those are going to be my biggest takeaways from this.
Okay, cool. Interesting. Today. I'm sure you'll like them. Actually, I'm quite confident.
Perfect. And always excited for some recommendations from Dan. Now, speaking of Dan, make sure that you are checking out Dan's channel over at Chairman of the Board. There's a link in the description of this video. Make sure that you're subscribed. He's putting out all of this content. I love his new format change of his 10 board games ranked. After Dan plays any set of 10 board games, he's going to review those and list them in which one that you should check out of these 10 most recently played. It's a consistent series that I think is informative and gives you a broad variety of games because it doesn't matter what necessarily the genre of them are. It's just all one group and what sticks out from that. Dan, what are some videos that you've put out recently or that are coming out soon that you're excited to share?
Coming out soon. I've just recorded another 10 games ranked. So yeah, they are coming thick and fast. So that one should be out soon. And to be honest, I want to start revamping my kind of classic top 10, my top 10 worker placement, all this stuff. I'd like to do a whole new series of the 2023 edition of that. So hopefully I'll find the time and conduct or compose those lists and get some good content out there.
Makes sense to me. It's always a weird, tricky thing when we're making the video content where it's like, how long do we wait? Like, how drastic of a change has our list created? And I think that when would you say was the last time that you made those videos?
It changes. Some of them are 3-4 years old, but are still relatively similar. Some are newer than that, but are way different. So it is difficult. I wouldn't mind maybe doing a hard reset and doing a whole bunch of new ones. But it's so frustrating because you play new stuff and it changes so quickly. It's difficult.
Yes, totally agree. And it's that snapshot in time, which I think is pretty cool going back and looking at the old list. And it does add a cool aspect to the video. We can do like a reflection after and be like, these are my old top 10 and here's the new one. And why did these leave and why did these come in? So I like that concept a lot. And if you aren't subscribed to our channel here at SideGame LLC yet, please make sure that you do. It is the best way to help us grow. And thank you so much for the continued support for those of you that are already subscribed. That's been our corporate cardboard episode 29. We're looking forward to episode 30. Not sure when it'll be here, but we'll have plenty of games played between now and then. Dan, anything else to add for this video, this channel? Anything else that you want to give to the audience here?
No, just thanks as always. Again, come over, check my channel out if you want to. Always love working with Mackenzie. Very knowledgeable, very articulate. So yeah, one of the best YouTubers out there.
Same with you, Dan. Love your perspective on things and just the way that you approach the hobby in general. So thank you so much, Dan, for being here and for joining us with Corporate Cardboard. And for those of you all watching live, thank you so much for being here. And those of you who are watching later, let us know down in the comments what you think about these games and what you think about our questions, our topics that we brought up. Curious to hear what you think, and let me know what's your name for your redone version of the Pac-Man card game. Thank you so much for watching SideGame Strong, y'all.
Bye, everybody.